you often, if you look at the news, some people might say, well, are they Chinese? I grew up in Taiwan, and when I was a kid, we called the people here Chinese. You know, my Chinese friend, or I'm going to go meet with my Chinese colleagues or classmates. We always said Chinese. However, the last 20 years, that's become very politically incorrect in Taiwan, and in fact, there aren't many ways that you can offend somebody here, but one way you might offend somebody here in Taiwan would be to call them Chinese. You will probably be corrected very quickly, and people will say, we're not Chinese, we are Taiwanese. And so you see this rise of what we call Taiwanese identity. People here now most people strongly identify themselves as Taiwanese, being unique from the people who live in China. There's some key words that I usually start with, and the first one I think describes a lot of the interactions you see in Taiwan is termed in Chinese 人情味. And it's very hard to interpret 人情味 into English, but the best description I've seen is the flavor of human feelings. And so as you interact with Taiwanese, I think one of the key things to remember is the way that people feel, the way that you make people feel, the way they make you feel is absolutely critical for everyday interactions. Taiwanese are always thinking about that. How do I make you feel? How are we feeling? So it's all about that. It's a very interpersonal culture, to use a good cultural term. Taiwan is extremely interpersonal. So as you work with Taiwanese, as you interact with them outside, as you just meet strangers, people are always concerned about human feeling, how people feel. And this is something that's very, very important to understanding the Taiwanese people. Other key words that I always throw out there, just to keep in the back of your mind. Number one is relationships. You can understand that if 人情味 is so important, relationships are absolutely important. And there's a term here that's used in Chinese a lot called 关系. And 关系 is a word that, of course, anyone who's lived in China or Taiwan or maybe even the Chinese-speaking world, it's a hard word to interpret, but it also means connections and networks. People are always making relationships and connections that can help them, that can ease your way through life, whether it's something that's very important or even something that's very casual. People are always developing these networks of people you know, you do favors for people, you give gifts, and you help each other out. And it's not a zero-sum game. It's not like, I help you, you help me, and now we're even. No, it's a network that lasts your entire life, and people are always working to build that network up so that you can get through life. But beyond that, relationships are very important. So whenever I talk to expats who are living and working in Taiwan, and they sometimes tell me about some challenges they have. Maybe it's communication, the style of communication. Maybe it's just trying to get around and understand really what's going on in their workplace. The number one solution that I give them is build relationships with your colleagues. And Americans tend to be very transactional, which means that I come to work, I do my job, and I go home. And that's it. There's no reason for me to spend extra time eating out with my Taiwanese colleagues, spending time at lunch with them, doing things that might build that relationship, because it doesn't really matter. I work my job, and everyone meets their responsibility, and that's it. That's not the way it works here in Taiwan. In Taiwan, relationship is absolutely key, because if you have good relationships with people, they trust you, they know you, they will open up more, they will communicate more, and you can get a lot more done. I've had so many foreign work employees that come here, and I tell them this, and 2-3 months later they come back to me and they say, wow, you were so right. I spent a little bit of extra time investment building relationships with people, and it made all the difference in the world. The other word that I throw out there is face. Face is a term I'm sure you're aware of, and every culture has some style or degree of face, but face is still very important. Especially at work, I always tell people, be aware there are situations where you might be causing some of your Taiwanese colleagues to lose face. People are always concerned about maintaining that face in front of others. So the way you approach people, whether it's correction or conflict or assigning tasks or communicating meetings, I always have my antenna up. I'm always looking to understand the aspect of face and how if I may be making someone lose too much face in front of someone else. And of course, we're looking for strategies to be effective at work, but keep that in mind, to be sensitive to that issue. And you'll see some behaviors that are either designed to improve somebody's face or they avoid losing face. So that's a key word. Hierarchy. is another word. Taiwan is not as hierarchical as some Asian cultures, for example, Japan, which seems to always be on the extreme end of the scale, but Japan or Korea. But Taiwan is still a hierarchical society, so you have to understand at times hierarchy at work. Particularly, there is a certain hierarchy there that you may be very overt, or it may just come out as you get to know people better, and you need to be sensitive to that. Flexibility, pragmatism. This is a double-edged sword because pragmatism and flexibility can be very, very positive. I think it usually is. Taiwanese are very quick to adjust to new ideas and do things in a, if you show them a new way of doing something and it's more efficient and more time effective, they will adopt to it very quickly. However, there are times where if you need something done the same way every single time, no exceptions, it must be done perfectly following the same process, that's when you have to be a little bit more careful because typically people will look for ways to do something more flexible, maybe make it go a little bit quicker. And so you have to be careful. Maybe you're in a technology industry where doing something the same way every single time is absolutely important. You cannot, A through Z, you must go through all 24 letters and make sure you have them, but someone might cut out of you. So anyhow, something to be aware of. Indirect communication is another word. The culture here, like many Asian cultures, is very indirect. And much of that is designed to preserve relationships, to preserve face, to recognize the hierarchy, and other things. So this can be very frustrating to particularly Westerners. They're used to a very direct form of communication. Yes is yes, no is no. Here's what I want to tell you. My words are going to be very clear so you understand them, and that's it. And then they feel that they're not getting the same sort of feedback back from their Taiwanese colleagues or employees. People are not saying things completely, or they say it in a very indirect, opaque way that you don't quite understand what they're trying to say. And this is a very classic form of communication in this part of Asia. And you have to find strategies to get around that. And one of those strategies, once again, is building relationships. The better you build a relationship with somebody, the more you're going to get the direct, clear feedback from them. And there's many other strategies I could talk about. Maybe this is another seminar, but I want to throw that out for you. One I just skipped over, but I forgot to mention that's absolutely important is harmony. Harmony is absolutely critical in this culture. People value harmony over so much more. They avoid conflict when at all possible. So one thing to also keep in mind, whether you're at work or whether you're driving your car down Taiwan Boulevard, is maintaining harmony and avoiding conflict is very, very important. The word I throw in here at the end, because I think it's the thing that Taiwan should take the most pride in, is democracy. Taiwan is a very open, free country. It's one of the freest, most open democracies in Asia. In that regard, I would say it's a great, tremendous success story that everyone, including my Taiwanese friends most of all, should take great pride in. And I think it influences a lot about the culture here. Whether it's this culturally immensely rich country, largely because of this open, free expression, or in areas such as religion or journalism or anything else, politics, of course, Taiwan is a tremendous democracy. And I think that's something worth protecting and cherishing, whether you're Taiwanese or not. So, I don't want to spend too much time on Confucianism, but I just throw it out there because Taiwan is a Confucius society. Sometimes in the West we talk about values like the Puritan work ethic or the Judeo-Christian values or whatever it might be. If you're looking for a foundational value for Taiwan and East Asia, whether it's China or Japan or Korea, Confucianism is very powerful. Now, granted, if you grab a Taiwanese friend or colleague and say, tell me about Confucius, they might not be able to say a whole lot to you, but it's a foundational value that is there. And a lot of the things you understand in Taiwan and the culture here that I just mentioned, such as harmony and relationships and hierarchy, come from Confucianism. Things like friendship, social etiquette, faith, hospitality, kindness, human heartedness, benevolence. This is not a religion. It's more of a foundation or a framework for interacting with each other on a day-to-day basis.